So, I'm your
Right.
guest. You can do whatever you want, record, start later. But I'm all yours.
All right. So we're recording. Let's just shoot the shit like that, like we were now.
Sure.
And I mean, how was that like now? When you were training some of the guys before when you were younger? Because I was reading up on like your story.
Mhm.
For everybody that's tuning in now, this is Brad Blazar, and I love your last name by the way. It's kind of like blazing your own trail. It's like I mean, it's on fire. There
Superhero right out of the movies.
we go. Right. And I mean, share a little bit about yourself with like a lot of the guys now, because I mean, I think you had generated close to $2 billion. You get me in venture capital,
Yep.
and a lot of the guys that you trained, you get me kind of like your story and just your mind map on success, how you got into like where you are, a lot of the nuggets that you've gotten like all along the way, and kind of just leaving like a trail for other guys to be able to blaze themselves.
Sure. Great. Kind of share my backstory with you. When I was going to college, I was at the University of Texas up in Austin, and I was studying architecture. I wanted to be a real estate developer. And so I wanted to go to school and become an architect and use those skills to go out and design real estate and become a developer because, that's where most people make the money. But while I was in school, I responded to an ad in the local newspaper there, and I went to work for a very small oil company. And my job was to take this list of wealthy people and get on the telephone and just cold call, just basically cold call. They didn't know me, I didn't know them. But what they gave me was largely a script and said, if you do these things and you learn to do them well, you can make a lot of money. And so, as a 21-year-old kid, I got on the phone, had the script, just started calling people and got
Kicking
really,
ass.
really good at understanding how to close, got really, really good at building trust, building relationships, all the thing that Jordan Belfort and Bradley talk about, the tonality of the voice and the voice inflection, all
Right.
that. And, the age of 21, 22, I was making $100,000, but I mean, I was only working like 12 to 15 hours a week because I was still going to college and I was coming in between classes and after school. And so I went to work for a second oil company, a little bit bigger, doing exactly the same thing. But unfortunately, what we found out when I was there is that they were committing fraud, just a bad group of guys taking the money, not doing the things that they were supposed to do. And so I immediately resigned the second that I found
Right.
out. I took all my investors, we organized ourselves, we filed a big class action lawsuit, which we won. But the funny thing that came out of that is I was 23 years old now, and all of these investors from California all the way over to the East Coast looked at me. They had never met me because I was doing all of this on the telephone. And they said, well, Brad, what are you going to do now? And I said, I don't really know. And they said, well, why don't you do what they were doing, but just do it honestly? And so I saw a huge opportunity and a door open in my life. And I said, I may never have this opportunity again. And so with about $10,000 in savings, Noel, I started an oil company. I knew nothing about business. I didn't have a business background. I dropped out of college. So here I am now, a punk college dropout, telling people, hey, I'm going to start an oil company. But the funny thing was, this was back when the big TV show Dallas was like the biggest show on TV. Everybody wanted to be J.R. Ewing. And I'm out as this little 23-year-old punk, and I'm going to be the next JR, right? I'm on the
Right.
phone raising money. But here's what I learned: learning how to raise money, learning how to attract capital is a skill. It's like riding a bike or like playing the piano. And once I put together my scripts of what to say and how to say it, and then I started hiring salespeople, I was able to teach them and train them how to do exactly the same thing. And one of the things that I've learned when you're building a team or when you're hiring people or you're building a company is you have to become a master at your craft. And then you have to figure out how you can replicate yourself in other people. And the way that you do that largely when you're in sales is through sales scripts. You want to give the new people, hey,
Right.
here's a couple scripts on what to say, how to say it, and we're going to drill and we're going to train and we're going to rehearse until, you can say it as good, if not better than me. That's how I was able to
Right.
build an oil company where, heck, we were raising millions of dollars a month. I had drilling projects in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, had 35 people on my payroll, and things were going great. And then after doing that for about maybe 10 years, in the late 1980s, early 90s, two things happened. One, oil prices plummeted. And then number two, the tax laws dramatically changed and it took away all of the incentives for people to invest. And so over the course of about a year and a half, I slowly, just gradually collapsed the company so that one day we no longer existed. And I like to tell people I did it right because I never had to file for bankruptcy. We didn't have any
Right.
debt. But I took about a year and a half and I just traveled and I kind of just decided what I wanted to do with my life. And what I came to realize was that my skill, what I was really great at, was raising money. And so after I went back to school and came out with the diploma, I entered basically the industry of becoming a professional capital raiser, raising money for projects of my own and projects that other people were doing, some large real estate syndication firms. And, like you said, over the course of my career, I've raised well in excess of $2 billion, raised it from all sources. I mean, family offices, individual investors,
Congratulations, by the way,
wealth
with
funds,
that.
you name it,
That's
I've
very
done it.
inspiring, and the lessons that you probably learned along the way with that. So I do want to congratulate you with that. I'm sure you've gotten tons of congratulations over the years, and a
Oh,
while
yeah.
back you probably had a lot of people when you were feeling, at its best when it just happened, and it's kind of like you might have just thought about it, you might have just written it down, and you ended up accomplishing that significant
Yep.
accomplishment. So congratulations to you for that. Although I know you've gotten that before, I wanted to share that with you and congratulate you myself. That's very inspiring.
No, I mean, it
Well,
just goes to show you that, anybody can do it. Here's the problem, Noel, and you said it earlier. Most people have a dream in life. We all want to do something big. But the problem and the big challenge is most people will never do it. And the reason that we don't do it is we as human beings are designed by default to fail. And the reason that I say that is that we're creatures of comfort. Okay. Psychologists have studied the human brain, and we have a part of the brain that they refer to as the reptilian brain or the primitive brain, which is designed to keep you out of harm's way. It's basically the trigger that when a predator is coming after you, quote, if you were an animal, would either cause you to stand and fight or cause you to run in the other direction. And the problem, because of the way our minds are programmed, is most people basically are creatures of comfort. We get to a point in life where we have a roof over our head, we have a vehicle that we can drive, we're able to go to the grocery store and put food on our table. So we no longer have that hunger or that drive that a lion or a tiger has where they're out hunting every day. But here's the thing, I
a lot of
believe
the time.
every person inside has the ability to have their potential unlocked. It's like flipping a switch. It's what a good coach can do for you. If you get a really good coach, that coach will do three things. They'll motivate and inspire you. Number two is they'll start getting you to do things tomorrow and next week that you're not doing today. And number three, they're going to ask you the hard questions. You should be doing this, Noel. Now, why in the hell aren't you doing it? Right? They're going to kind of rough you up a little bit, but that's where change and transformation begins. It's getting out of your comfort zone. Because once you get outside of your comfort zone and you do something that you
It feels
thought you
good.
could not do, your confidence level goes up.
Yeah.
Then you do something bigger, your confidence level goes up, right? And so I tell people you've got to stretch, you've got to push yourself daily, because if you don't, you're going to get exactly what everybody else is getting: mediocrity. And,
Right.
I've interviewed Brad Lee. I've been on his podcast. I've interviewed some of the biggest thought leaders like Kevin Harrington. We just released his podcast today. And what I've
That's
largely
huge,
come
by
to
the way.
learn,
Like these are the
uh,
guys that I'm trying to connect with, like right now. You being one of them, obviously,
yeah,
because being 22, you get me. I think money's important. Anybody that says money's not important, you can't pay your bills with love. And I think in society, a lot of the time, people have to unlearn a lot of things, right? I've read a little shy of 200 books on success. So I
good
didn't
for you.
grow up wealthy. This is what has allowed me more than anything to be able to have communications with people when I speak with them,
Yeah,
and also having mentors along the way. Like one of the people that's really good friends with Jordan Belfort now, he's one of my good mentors now. He's a good friend of mine. He's kind of like an older brother, father figure with me. And I have a lot of other guys that you get me. I'm always shaking hands with because I'm just myself. I'm just very authentic. I'm like, this is who I am. Like shoot straight. You get me. You don't want to go out of business. Uh, realistically, right? Because that's nothing to play with. But it's funny that somebody thinks that, I think to a certain extent they probably didn't know any better, where it's like they did something that's wrong. They think that they're going to become successful. They're short ending everybody. That's just going to implode within itself, like just naturally, like any industry, anywhere, right? So
yeah. I mean, you know, you're largely right.
How did you start connecting with like a lot of the people himself and you guys, I guess, like, because I know that you study beliefs a lot and like the belief systems, like the human mind, all that stuff, like just the way that you articulate your brilliant ideas, because this is next level stuff.
Well,
How
here's what I'll tell you, okay, and let this sink in because it is God's honest truth. All your listeners, you are the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. If you're not satisfied where you are in life, it's because of the people you're associating with and spending most of your time with. If you want to up your game and you want to make more money, you want to have a more fulfilling life, go out and start looking for a new circle of friends. That's a God's honest truth because when you look at activating this prey drive or you look at flipping the switch, there's a couple of ways to do that. One is what I call competition. Some people are just competitive. They want to be number one, man. They want to make the most money. They want to have the biggest house. That's what motivates them. That's what triggers that prey drive that just keeps them going, keeps them hustling, keeps them grinding. Other people, it's exposure. You get around big time people that are worth a lot of money, it's going to motivate and inspire you. You're like, man, they got some nice stuff. I'm hungry. I want to have the same car that he drives, or I want to have a nice house like he drives. For a lot of others, it's the fear of loss. You're so successful and you're doing so well that you realize that if you back off the pedal and you don't put forth the effort, that what you've acquired and built can very easily be taken away. And these are some of the things that motivate people to success. The challenge, like I said earlier, is most people reach a plateau. They acquiesce. And what they say to themselves subconsciously is, this is as successful as I will ever be, or this is as much money as I can ever make. When in reality, that's bullshit. The
right?
biggest sale that you ever have to make in your lifetime is the sale you make to yourself. It's looking at yourself one day in the
Yeah,
mirror and saying, I am done with mediocrity. I am done with living an unfulfilling life. I'm going to go pro in everything I do, from fitness to mindset to showing up and being present. And until you make that mental decision to go pro and be a champion every day, it ain't going to happen
how would you
because you're
break
always
down
going
the
to be
mind
behind.
map for somebody to begin to go pro? Like I myself, like I believe in, I agree with you what you said, like 100%. Like I agree with you, like
Yep.
100%. How would you break it down for somebody that wants to begin to get their shit together and want to become successful in life and just begin to really just build themselves
Mhm.
and allow everything else you get me to kind of happen by fixing those things that they have to unlearn, any kind of limiting beliefs that weren't there or they just realized that were there and you were able to break it down for them right now because of what we just brought to attention right now with me and you together.
Well, here's what you have to believe. Your reality is largely defined and supported by your belief system. Now, most people have heard the term limiting beliefs or self doubt, right? These are the things that operate at our subconscious level that hold us back from greatness. It's basically, I can't do this, or I shouldn't do that, or I don't want to take the risk to do these things. And those limiting beliefs have been reinforced since childhood so that now they're subconscious. You don't really think about them. And what you have to have the ability to do is kind of look at yourself introvertly and challenge that belief system. One thing that I'll tell you is that very successful people do not listen to their feelings. They don't listen to the white noise. They don't listen to the naysayers. They have a goal. They've written it down. They're committed to the attainment of that goal, and they take baby steps. It's a step a day, just one foot in the other, until finally they look back and they've reached that goal because they took action. And that's half the battle. Most people don't even take action, they don't put forth
Right.
any effort. But if you start taking action and you take a goal and you break it down into bite sized pieces and say, this month, I'm going to do this. Next month, I'm going to do that. You'll eventually reach the goal. It's the same thing about connecting with people. Once you have connections and you start talking to successful people, it's asking them, who are you connected with that I also need to meet? And hopefully, what they'll do is they'll open their network. And before you know it, you're now connecting with a whole group of people that you can have on your podcast, or you can invite to speak, or potentially they'll invite you to speak at one of their events. And it just kind of snowballs on itself. But the biggest challenge is most people are basically just not pushing themselves to the extent they can. Think of it this way. God being our creator, when he created all of us, he designed us as Ferraris capable of going 180 miles an hour down the Autobahn. Most people are putting along like six-cylinder Yugos, right?
Right.
Why are you not putting your pedal to the metal and going down the Autobahn like a Ferrari at 180 miles an hour? It's because you're comfortable as a Yugo. You know, you're at home sitting on the couch watching a TV show and, you know, drinking a beer, whatever. Most people are not willing to put forth the effort. It takes effort. It takes hard
Right.
work to
Yeah.
become a millionaire. It's like I say, or some other people say, everybody wants to have the six-pack abs when we're walking down the beach, but very few people are willing to go to the gym, right? And whenever I see someone that's disciplined enough where they are, I mean, like, you know, cover GQ material or men's health material, and they're chiseled, I know the dedication it takes to get that, not only in the gym, but also in the diet. And I know that that person's probably a success in many other areas of life too, because of the discipline. You see, here's the challenge. Most people don't even have goals. You know, there was a study done,
Scary.
believe it or not, that, you know, they tracked a whole bunch of people and they said, how many people here have goals? And roughly only 17% raised their hand. 83% didn't have any goals. They just had dreams. Only 3% had physically written their goals down on paper, committed some action to them, and they tracked that group. And what they found is that audience was much more successful, had much more money, had acclaimed much more wealth over about a 5 to 7 year period. And so there's tremendous importance in writing down goals where you can focus on them, you can visualize them, and you can take action.
I
You
agree
know, the
with that
example
100%,
I
by the
give
way.
is if you're an architect, let's just say you have an idea that pops into your head for a building and you just take a little notepad and you make a sketch of it. Well, you might put that sketch aside in a drawer or in a dresser and not see it for 6 months, maybe a year. But when you're cleaning up, when you see that sketch, you can go, ah, you can sit down and now draft a set of blueprints. And then you can take those blueprints to a builder that can erect and construct the physical building. And so what you've done is you've taken a conceptual idea, you've turned it into something real. Well, it's the
Have you
same
ever
thing.
had the experience where you go back and it's like goals that you wrote 3, 4, 5 years back, and since you're always educating yourself and you're always reading and you're, upgrading your mindset, I believe mindset is everything, because if you have the right mindset and you're a good person, like you'll figure it out, because you'll know how to figure it out, because you know that, you get me, the same way that you can get in your car, you can unlock it, you can go in it and you can go for a drive and get to your exact destination of where you're looking to go. It's like that in every single circumstance. It's just a matter of the fact that you need the information, possibly, of the directions of what you need to get there, and then the persistence and stickability to be able to have anything that you want. Have you ever had that experience where, like, you'll look at your goals 3, 4 years back, and you get me, you're just thinking a million times even bigger?
Mhm. Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of times I'll look at goals I had written down 3 years ago and realize that my goal wasn't big enough, or I wasn't stretching myself or pushing myself further. And a lot of times I'll reach a goal and then I'll say, okay, I've attained that goal. Now I have a big, hairy, audacious goal that sounds so unrealistic. But here's the thing. Goals basically have to follow a pattern. They have to have 5 things in order to be a goal. They have to be basically specific. You have to have some form of specificity to them so that it's a specific goal. It has to be something that you can measure. It has to be something that is actionable, that you can take action on. It needs to be somewhat realistic where you can attain it, and then it has to be time bound. And so I tell people, when you're sitting down writing your goals, remember that acronym SMART, SMART, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound. As an example, for somebody that's 85 years old to say, I'm going to climb Mount Everest, probably unrealistic, right? So you have to look at a goal that's going to stretch yourself, put you a little bit outside of your comfort zone, but that also, with some practice, with some hard work, would be somewhat attainable. Maybe you say, I want to run a marathon by the end of the year, December 15th. Well, that's specific, it's measurable, it's time bound. And so that would be a goal that for many people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s would be a goal that could easily be accomplished if people are willing to put forth the effort and the training in order to accomplish that.
What would be some of the things, in addition to what you said, when it comes to connecting with other people, like for yourself, that you'd be able to share with anybody that wants to begin to build relationships, is either still figuring it out, has figured it out, or is in the middle of that, or just getting in?
Yeah.
Just like because I have a lot of people that do tune in with this, and one of the things that I told my other friend, he was featured on Forbes and Men's Health Fitness, very successful friend of mine. He's extremely connected. Some of the people that follow him, like Drake follows some of them. It's just he's a star. He's a great friend of mine, and we'll text back and forth. And one of the things with him is that how would you share, you get me, in building connections and stuff? Because I'm always learning from him. I'm always picking his brain. I'm picking your brain right now, which is freaking awesome. For a lot of the people tuning in, like, what are some of the things that you'd share in practical steps in building authentic relationships?
Always lead with value. There's a gentleman by the name of Larry K. Benet. His last name is Benet, Larry K. Benet. He is known as one of the most connected people on the planet. I mean, the dude knows everybody. Same thing with like Roland Frazier. And what I do, and what a lot of these guys do that are great connectors, is they lead with value. In other words, if I'm introduced to somebody and they're a fairly well-known celebrity, someone like a Kevin Harrington, or I know Matthew Knowles, whose daughter happens to be Beyonce. We'll have a podcast or we'll have a great Zoom, just get to know each other. A couple of days later, what I will frequently do is I'll think of somebody else that I know that's also pretty powerful. And I'll just send out an email and I'll say something like, "Hey, Noel, I want to introduce you to another rock star. I'd like to introduce you to Matthew Knowles. Matt, Noel is an up and coming rock star himself. Now that
Thank
you
you, Brad.
both
You're
have each
awesome.
other's
Coming from you,
emails,
I
I just
appreciate that.
step out of the
Awesome.
equation and I'm so happy to make the introduction. Carpe diem. What I've done is I've added value to both people's lives. I've made a connection and an introduction. What happens after that is up to those two people. But in their eyes, I've done something of value. I haven't asked for anything. I've just
Right.
introduced two great people, right? So when I come back to you at a later date with maybe a small favor or small request, you're much more apt to follow through and help me. Why? Because I led with value first. I didn't meet you and then say, "Hey, can you do this for me?" I said, "Hey, I want to add value to your life by introducing you to someone that I really respect, that I think is a super person." And then when I come back to you the second time with a small request or favor, you're like, "Yeah, man, absolutely. You helped me by introducing me to this rock star that I didn't know. And so what is it you need?" That's one of the best ways, always, to solidify a connection, to make
Mm,
that connection stronger. And then it's always follow up. If somebody introduces you to somebody, thank them for it. Let them know, "Hey, last week I just wanted to let you know I did finally follow up and talk to so and so, and I can't thank you enough for making that connection for me." But that's really, I think, the best thing is to
I'm
always
getting
have that
takeaways from
value
this, by the
mindset.
way. Like, you're awesome, Brad.
Yep.
Um, what are other things like within your own mind map? Because for me, I have this vision of I want to make the globe success conscious. Before I die, I will do that. I have a
Mhm.
whole plan. It's written out, it's very lengthy, but it's also, you get me, appropriate, because I understand that there's going to be adjustments and things are going to end up being better than what I think that they're
Yep.
going to be. Because I believe in Christ. I'm a Christian, baptized and all that. And you get me, all that. I love Jesus. Jesus Christ is awesome. And a lot of the times, you get me, I'll have my gut. The easiest way I've been able to communicate this with everyone is that intuitive gut feeling where you just know that when you do it, it's right. When you don't, it's wrong. Not in a moral ethics perspective, although that's important, obviously,
Right.
but more so in leading from the gut in when you make your business decisions. Not
Mhm.
because you feel that they're right, but something is like a tug. And when you don't listen to that tug, that Napoleon Hill would call it, you get me, the universal mind, that supernatural force, of
Yep.
the universe, and tapping into that, and kind of like, all power players being connected to that at some level,
Mhm.
right? And how would you break down like your mind map for other people, that if you were to give like a master class, you get me, in the skinny of it, with your best points in allowing somebody to transform and take their life to like a whole nother level, whether it's habits, mindsets. One is surrounding yourself with higher peers,
Yep.
right? Start working on your beliefs, because if you can raise your own value mentally, you get me, and you can improve your beliefs, you get me, you're more likely to get to where you want to get to, because you now think that you're worthy. You're going to start taking action towards it because you now have faith and you believe it's possible, right? Versus before you may not even have thought that, and
Mhm.
they're beginning to get the ball moving. Like, what's your perspective on that, on like breaking it down?
Well, one thing that I believe is that too many people chase the wrong things. We all want success, we all want fulfillment, we all want a life of abundance. But in reality, one of the best books that I've ever read that really talks about something that I personally kind of believe is The Seven Habits of Highly Successful People by Dr. Stephen Covey. And what he largely talks about basically in his works, which I really embrace, is what he calls the whole person theory. And what that simply means is we as human beings are basically made up of four components: your mind, your spirit, your soul, and your body. And he said to really leave a life of balance, you want to basically focus on improvement in all four of those areas, meaning you want to feed your mind with positive things. That's the books, that's the podcast, that's conversations. You want to focus on your body, which is fitness, working out, right? You want to focus on your spirit, right, which is your connection with a superior. And then you also want to focus on your soul, which is largely your compassion in your work, what it is you do. And there was a wonderful word that I actually heard from somebody last year when I was interviewing him on my podcast. And he used this word and threw it out. And I was like, wow, that's a great word. Say that again. And then he described what it was. And the word that he used, and what I think everybody should really strive for, is to become a fulfillionaire. A
Mhm.
fulfillionaire is a person that leads a fulfilling life, but more importantly, it's also a life of abundance. And when he described it to me, he said, "Did you ever see the movie Jerry Maguire?" And I'm like, "Oh, sure." He's like, "You remember when Rod Tidwell told Jerry, Jerry, just give me the Quan?" Well, the word Quan for Rod Tidwell was the same as fulfillionaire. He wanted, of course, the big contract, but he also wanted everything that came with it. And so it's one thing to have success, but let's face it, if you're making $1 million a year, but you're a crappy husband and you're a shitty father to your daughter or your son, you're not living a fulfilling, balanced life. And so what I
Right.
explain is let's become fulfillionaires in all areas of our life and really embrace this whole person theory so that we can better ourselves on those four fronts.
What would be some of the things that, going back to now, are some of the more like advanced things that you've learned like over time? Because you're older than me. You're like what, like you're in your 40s, 42, 41, 43?
I
Yeah.
would say number one, get started now, man. Don't wait. Don't put it off. Take action. Get started. Whatever it is you want to do it. Don't let the fear of not doing it stand in the way. I mean, I was 23, didn't know anything about launching a business. Took a couple $1,000, printed up some letterhead business cards, got an office. I mean, I did it. And the great thing about entrepreneurship is you figure it out along the journey. You start surrounding yourself with people that help you. You get a
It's
good
exciting.
attorney, get a good CPA. They'll help you. They'll keep you on the straight and narrow. So don't let the fact you don't know something be a precursor to success. The other thing to understand is the biggest fear that we have in life is the fear of the judgment of other people. It's not the fear of failure. It's not the fear of losing money. The biggest fear we have is actually the judgment of other people. It's like, if I do this and I'm not successful, what will my parents say? What will my siblings say? What will my good friends think about me?
Mhm.
And that's a very, very hard thing to overcome because it's an emotional bond to the people that you care about the most or the
Right.
people that love you the most. And what a lot of people have to understand is the very successful people like the Ed Milet's, right? The Brad Lee's, the Bobby Castro's, they're at a point in life where they're going to tell you, don't give a shit about what other people think, because if you live your life to make other people happy, you'll be miserable.
Right.
If you want to be happy, do it at the expense of making other people miserable, but you'll be happy. And a lot of people don't understand that. There are so many people that go into professions because they want to make their parents proud. You see it commonly in Asian and Indian communities where people go on to become doctors or lawyers. Why? It's because they think that's what's expected. Their parents push them into something to
Yeah.
have a career where in reality they fucking hate what they're doing.
Right.
Why would you want to do that and spend your entire life in a career that you really dislike and do it just because you thought that that's what was going to make your family or your parents proud or happy? Do something really that's fulfilling, because if you do something that's fulfilling that you're passionate about, it doesn't seem like work.
And it's true because a lot of people will just focus specifically on maybe a path that is laid out just because the parent or whatever may have wanted them to do that. And a lot of the time, if you're not maybe fulfilled in that area, it'll possibly, not always, but possibly, it could roll into other areas where it's more in your personal life when, let's say, that person gets married and they have kids. It's like maybe they won't be at their very best because they may or may not be at their very best at their job, possibly because that's not even what they wanted to do, where they may have more fulfillment and will go even the extra mile even further. They're doing what they like, and all kinds of miraculous things begin to happen. What's the
Yep.
word? Serendipitously,
Yep.
throughout
Exactly.
that
Yep.
altogether.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
What are other things that like? Because you're very intelligent. Like you're probably one of the most. I think all the guys that I've had on are awesome, but they are like one of them. You get me. He's got like 300,000 followers. He's featured on Forbes Mental. He's a good friend of mine. Like he's always
Yep.
teaching me things. He didn't grow up wealthy either. I don't know, like all these guys, like they have a good soul, they have a good heart, and I believe everyone has a voice. So I always try to connect with, regardless of anything, because I've had guys that they know all these people, and I just won't fuck with them because I don't like them. It's like I don't like your soul, dude. Like I don't know, like I just felt like there was a backdoor agenda there. I'd just rather not. Maybe it's
Yeah.
because my other friend, you get me, has a roles or whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, and it's like there's just something I don't know. It just didn't click. And then there's other
Hmm.
people where it's just like I don't, it's just a different. It's an intuitive thing. Um, what are some of the more advanced concepts when you like naturally like articulate them and like accept it that would be that you have accepted that would be good for other people to understand from
Yeah.
your
Great
perspective
question. And
and like
unfortunately
success,
got
life,
about another.
everything.
Yeah, I mean, I've only got about another 3 or 5 minutes because I've got a
That's
standing
awesome.
call here at 3:15, which is
Thanks for
4:15.
doing this, by the way, with me. I think it's
But
awesome
here,
having you on the
yeah,
podcast, Brad.
but here's what I'll tell you, because I'm sure a lot of your listeners are at your age. I was watching a TV show many years ago, and this largely is what I attribute my success to. Um, I believe that everybody has something special. It's like when you were created, God took his hand and physically put something special deep inside you. And it's what I call your gift. Now, most people will never figure out what that is, they will never understand what it is. But if you can really look at yourself introvertly and say, like, God, what is like my special gift? Like, what am I really good at that just with a little bit of practice and a little bit of nurture, I could become so good that I could become like one of the best of the best. Once you're able to figure out what that is, your special gift, if you can then figure out a way to bring that gift to the world, you can create a fortune. And certainly some people have done this, right? Tiger Woods, right? The Michael Jordans of the world, the best musicians of the world, the best artists of the world. And I love watching people that are artists and musicians. Why? Because they're super talented, they're very gifted, and they're making a freaking fortune as a highly paid musical artist or as a highly paid artist selling their paintings or their sculptures or whatever. But the one thing that I would say to everybody is spend time really getting to know yourself. Most people don't even know themselves. And that's so frustrating because you go through life trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And if you look at the career paths for many people, it's like they bounce from job to job to job to job. Where today it's not uncommon for people to have a new job like every 3 to 5 years, if not more frequently, because they're
Right.
still trying to find themselves. So the best thing that I can say is try to find that one thing, maybe looking back over your life where people have told you, Zoll, you're a really great, whatever, baseball player, really great speaker, really great, if you play a musical instrument.
XYZ.
And then just keep practicing and refining that so that you get to a point where you're like so good that people are
It's
now
fun.
willing to pay you money to be in your audience, to be in your presence, right? To be around you because that gift is now so refined. Whether you're a dancer, I mean, I've got a good friend whose daughter is one of the top ballet dancers in the world. She's one of only two women in all of America that's ever been invited to dance for the prestigious Russian ballet. I mean, only one of two people in the world. You see, but she refined that gift over many, many years. My good friend Darren Miller, who has a Guinness Book of World Record, who's one of the world's greatest
Cool, by the way.
endurance skiers, swimming the English Channel, the Cook Strait, the Tsugaru Trip, 20 miles in the ocean. He didn't just wake up one day and jump in the water and swim. He practiced for years. But today he's known as the only one of only two humans that's ever done that, swim the 7 largest channels around the world and has a Guinness World Record for doing it. So the point I'm trying to make is find what it is you really are good at and then just continue to refine it and master it and really get to a point where people will pay you money for the expertise, for the art, for the music, for the knowledge, whatever it is.
If somebody wanted to follow up with you and do private coaching and be able to find you throughout all of social media altogether,
Yep.
where would they be able to locate you?
Go to my website. That's the easiest way. It's www.bradblazar.com, BradBlaz, like zebra, AR, Blazar with an A at the end. Go to Instagram and follow me there. We post daily, have a lot of great content there. And then most importantly for anybody, come to Houston, Texas, April 16th and 17th to the big event that we're hosting with Kevin Harrington. We got Coach Michael Burt that's going to be there. We got Sharon Lecter, who co-wrote The Rich Dad, Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki. She's phenomenal. She sold over 42 million books and also co-wrote the Outwitting the Devil. I've got Sergio Bruna. For a lot of Latinos, you might know him. He's one of the biggest global ambassadors for General Motors in the Hispanic market. But come to Houston, Texas. You go to my website, click on the Capital Con link, get in the door, VIP, surround yourself with all of these big thought leaders, all these people that are going to be there for a day and a half to feed your mind, to train you, to share their secrets of success, because success does leave clues. And by far the best investment you can make is in knowledge and investing in yourself.
Brad, it was really awesome to have you pass by. I don't want to hold you up because I do know you have another meeting.
Well, we can
Very
definitely do this
important.
again. Anytime you want to do this again, no, you just reach out, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to bring some more bombs to your podcast and to help you out. I love doing this and really love adding value. So it's been a pleasure connecting and look forward to continue to follow you. You follow me. And most importantly, like I said, just helping you become successful.
I appreciate you, Brad, coming from you. And I look forward to being able to build a relationship. If there's anything that I could do, I'm very young, and if I can just be able to reach out, and I'd love to be able to be of service if I can in any way possible throughout it.
Absolutely, buddy. Take care, man. Have a great remainder to your week.
Thanks, Brad. You're awesome. All right, guys. So this was a great podcast. We will catch you on the next one. This is Noel A Zapata, and we're signing off. God bless.